The Dominion had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had conquered 17 star systems. They had crushed hundreds of species under their iron fist. Their warships were the most powerful machines ever built. Their soldiers were bred for war. Their generals had never known defeat. When their scouts found Earth, they laughed. Admiral Al sat in his command chair aboard the massive warship called the Dominion's Pride. He looked at the images on his screen. A small blue planet, green lands, white clouds, and billions of small, soft creatures who called themselves humans. "What do we know about them?" he asked his science officer. "They are primitive, Admiral. They have only reached their own moon. Their weapons use chemical explosions. They fight each other constantly over land and resources. They have no unified government. They are divided into hundreds of small tribes they call nations." Al made a sound that passed for laughter among his kind. His scaled face twisted into what might have been a smile. "Send 300 ships," he said. "It will be good training for our new recruits." The High Command agreed. Earth was not worth a real invasion force. It was just another primitive world to add to their collection. The humans would surrender quickly. They always did. Every species did. 300 warships jumped through space toward the small blue planet. They carried enough firepower to crack a moon in half. They carried soldiers eager to prove themselves. They carried the absolute certainty that this would be easy. They were wrong. On Earth, it was a Tuesday morning. The sun was rising over the Pacific Ocean. Children were going to school. People were driving to work. Coffee shops were opening their doors. It was an ordinary day. Then the sky turned dark. Massive shapes descended through the clouds. They blocked out the sun over every major city on the planet. New York, London, Beijing, Moscow, Tokyo, Sydney. Hundreds of alien warships hung in the air like metal mountains. Every television screen, every radio, every phone suddenly showed the same image. An officer with gray scales and yellow eyes spoke in a voice that made children cry and grown men shake. "Inhabitants of this world, you are now property of the Dominion. Resistance is extinction. Compliance is survival. You have 1 hour to surrender your governments and your weapons. If you do not comply, we will demonstrate our power." The hour passed. No one surrendered. At exactly 60 minutes, they opened fire. Plasma beams rained down from the sky. Moscow's Red Square turned to glass in 3 seconds. The London Bridge evaporated. Half of Lowe's Angels became a smoking crater. Beijing burned. Millions of people died in the first 10 minutes. The armies of Earth tried to fight back. Fighter jets scrambled from every airbase. Missiles launched from submarines and underground silos. Tanks rolled through city streets. Soldiers fired their rifles at the sky. Nothing worked. The jets were shot down before they could get close. The missiles exploded harmlessly against energy shields. The tanks were crushed like toys. The bullets bounced off alien armor like raindrops. In Washington, D.C., the President of the United States sat in an underground bunker with his advisors. They watched the destruction on screens that flickered with each nearby explosion. "We have to surrender," said the Secretary of State. "We cannot fight this." "They will enslave us," said the Secretary of Defense. "Every species they conquer becomes slaves." "What choice do we have?" the Secretary of State shouted. "Our weapons are useless. Our armies are dying. We are losing millions of people every hour." The President said nothing. He stared at the screen showing New York City in flames. In Geneva, Switzerland, the United Nations Emergency Assembly gathered in a building that shook from distant explosions. World leaders who had spent decades arguing with each other now sat together in fear. Old enemies became allies in an instant. None of that mattered anymore. Secretary General Laura Mitchell stood at the podium. She was a tall woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She had spent her life working for peace between nations. Now she watched those nations burn. "We have received demands from she said. Her voice was steady even though her hands were shaking. "They want complete surrender. They want control of all governments. They want access to all resources. They want us as their slaves." The room erupted in shouting. Some demanded surrender. Some demanded continued resistance. Some simply wept. Then the doors at the back of the room opened. Everyone turned to look. A man walked in wearing a military uniform that no one recognized. He was tall and broad-shouldered with short gray hair and a face like carved stone. Behind him walked officers from a dozen different countries, all wearing the same strange uniform. "Who are you?" Laura Mitchell demanded. "This is a closed session." The man walked to the front of the room. He moved with the confidence of someone who knew something no one else knew. "My name is General Cross," he said, "and I represent a project that most of you have never heard of, a project that has been running in secret for 70 years, a project that exists for exactly this moment." He placed a small tablet on the podium and pressed a button. A holographic display appeared in the air above the assembled leaders. It showed ships, thousands of ships, human ships. The room fell silent. "Ladies and," General Cross said, "they think we are primitives. They think we cannot fight back. They think this planet is defenseless." He smiled, and there was no warmth in it. "They are about to learn how wrong they are." Laura Mitchell stared at the images of the hidden fleet. Her mind struggled to understand what she was seeing. "How is this possible?" she whispered. "We don't have this technology." "Yes, we do," said General Cross. "We have had it for 70 years. Every major nation has contributed to this project. Trillions of dollars, millions of workers, all in complete secrecy, all for this day." "Why were we not told?" shouted the President of France. "Because secrets don't stay secret when politicians know them," Cross replied simply. "We needed to be ready. We needed the element of surprise, and now we are ready." He turned to face the window, where the sky was filled with alien ships. "Those came here expecting to find sheep," he said. "They are about to discover that they have walked into a den of wolves." Outside, the bombardment continued. Cities burned, people died. They celebrated their easy victory. They did not know that deep beneath the surface of the moon, beneath the red dust of Mars, hidden in the asteroid belt, 12,000 human warships were powering up their engines. They did not know that humanity had been waiting for this moment. They did not know that the real war was about to begin. The year was 1954. The place was a remote mountain range in Argentina. A shepherd named Carlos was walking with his sheep when he saw a light fall from the sky. He found the crash site the next morning. It was not a meteor. It was not an airplane. It was something that should not exist. A craft made of metal that seemed to flow like water. Strange symbols covered its surface. Inside, Carlos found a body, a creature with gray skin and large black eyes. It was dead. Carlos ran to the nearest town. He told the police. The police told the army. The army told the government. The government told the Americans. Within 48 hours, the crash site was surrounded by soldiers from 5 different countries. Scientists arrived in unmarked planes. Everything was loaded into trucks and taken away. Carlos was paid a large sum of money and told to forget what he saw. The official story was that a weather balloon had crashed. But the truth was far more important. The alien craft was damaged but not destroyed. Its computer systems still worked, and those systems contained something that changed everything. Star maps, weapon designs, engine blueprints, and most importantly, historical records. The scientists learned that the galaxy was filled with intelligent life. Hundreds of species lived among the stars. But they also learned something terrible. Most of those species were slaves. A powerful empire called the Dominion had conquered them all. Species that fought back were destroyed. Species that surrendered were put in chains. The records showed planet after planet being invaded. The pattern was always the same. They would arrive with overwhelming force. They would demand surrender. They would crush any resistance. They would take everything of value and enslave the survivors. Earth was in the path of their expansion. It was only a matter of time. The world's leaders made a decision. They could not fight with the weapons they had. They could not even leave their own planet. But they had something precious. They had time. And they had the crashed ship's technology to study. Project was born. For 70 years, humanity prepared in secret. The greatest minds from every nation worked together. Old enemies shared their knowledge. Countries that had pointed nuclear weapons at each other now built starships side by side. The work was hidden everywhere. Underground facilities stretched for miles beneath mountains. Factories on the dark side of the moon produced weapons that no human had ever imagined. Shipyards in the asteroid belt assembled warships by the hundreds. Dr. Torres had spent her entire life in project. Her parents had worked on the project before her. Her grandparents had been among the first scientists to study the alien craft. The secret had passed through her family like a sacred duty. Now she stood on the observation deck of Station Prometheus, hidden in the thick clouds of Saturn's moon Titan. Through the viewport, she could see the fleet. 12,000 warships floated in perfect formation. Each one was beautiful and deadly. Their hulls were made from metals that did not exist on Earth. Their weapons could tear through mountains. Their engines could cross the galaxy in weeks. Captain Holt stood beside her. He was a pilot, one of the best in the fleet. He had trained for 20 years for a battle he hoped would never come. "It's really happening," said quietly. "They're really here." "We always knew they would come eventually," replied. "That's why we built all of this." Shook her head. "I know, but there's a difference between knowing something might happen and watching it happen. They're killing millions of people right now, while we sit here in safety." "Not for long," said. "We're deploying in 6 hours." The main communication screen lit up. A woman's face appeared. She had silver hair cut short and eyes that had seen too much. Admiral Shaw was 62 years old. She had given her entire life to project. She had never married. She had no children. The fleet was her family. Humanity's survival was her only purpose. "All stations, all ships," she said. Her voice was calm and clear. "This is Admiral Shaw. As of 600 hours, project is no longer classified. The enemy has attacked they have killed our people. They believe we are defenseless." She paused. When she spoke again, there was steel in her voice. "We are not defenseless. We have spent 70 years preparing for this moment. Every ship in this fleet was built with one purpose: to protect our home, to strike back against any force that threatens humanity." Across the hidden bases of the solar system, crews stopped what they were doing. Engineers put down their tools. Pilots climbed into their cockpits. Soldiers checked their weapons one last time. "The Empire has never lost a war," Admiral Shaw continued. "They have conquered hundreds of worlds. They believe they are unbeatable. Today, we will teach them otherwise." On the bridge of every ship, captains stood at attention. In the engine rooms, engineers prepared for maximum power. In the weapons bays, gunners loaded ammunition that could punch through starship armor. "All ships will jump to Earth in exactly 6 hours," said Admiral Shaw. "We will engage the enemy immediately upon arrival. We will not stop until every ship is destroyed or driven from our system." She leaned forward, her eyes burning with determination. "For 70 years, we have hidden in the darkness. We have watched and waited and built our strength. Now the darkness is over. Now we step into the light. Now we show the galaxy what humanity can do when our survival is at stake." Dr. Torres felt tears running down her face. Around her, she could see others crying too, not from sadness, from something else, from the release of a secret held too long, from the knowledge that their life's work was about to be tested. "All ships begin final preparations," Admiral Shaw commanded. "We're going home." The communication ended. For a moment, there was silence on Station Prometheus. Then someone started clapping. Others joined in. The sound built until it echoed through the entire station. Holt put his hand on shoulder. "Your grandparents would be proud," he said. Wiped her eyes and nodded. "They always said this day would come. They said we had to be ready. They said we had to be better than we ever thought we could be." "And are we?" asked. Looked out at the fleet. 12,000 ships, the product of 7 decades of secret work, the combined effort of every nation on Earth, the greatest military force humanity had ever created. "I guess we're about to find out," she said. 6 hours later, the fleet jumped. On Earth, they continued their bombardment. They had already destroyed dozens of cities. Billions of humans lived in fear. The occupation was proceeding exactly as planned. Then the sky lit up with 10,000 flashes of light. The sensors screamed warnings. Their officers stared at their screens in disbelief. This could not be happening. This primitive species could not have a fleet. They could barely reach their own moon. But the evidence was undeniable. 12,000 human warships had just appeared in orbit around Earth, and they were not coming to negotiate. Admiral Al stood on the bridge of the Dominion's Pride, watching the impossible sight unfold before him. "What is this?" he demanded. "Where did these ships come from?" No one could answer him, because no one had ever seen anything like this before. The humans had hidden an entire fleet. They had prepared for decades. They had waited in silence and built in secret. And now they were here to take back their world. Subcommander Hose had claimed the top floor of a ruined skyscraper in New York City as his command center. Through the shattered windows, he could see the fires still burning across Manhattan. The humans called this place their greatest city. Now it was rubble and ash. He felt proud of what they had accomplished. The invasion had been simple. The humans fought hard, he had to admit. They threw everything they had at the forces, jets and missiles and tanks and soldiers with primitive guns. But it was like insects attacking a giant. Annoying, perhaps, but never dangerous. His adjutant, a young officer named, entered the room with a data pad. "The reports from the surface," Subcommander said. "We have eliminated organized resistance in most major population centers. Small groups continue to fight in remote areas, but they pose no real threat." Hose waved his clawed hand. "Good. Begin the resource extraction. I want a full inventory of this planet's minerals and metals within 10 cycles." "Yes," Subcommander paused. "There is one concern." "Speaker." "We have lost contact with 17 patrol units in the past day, all in mountainous or forested regions." Hose snorted. "Equipment failures. This planet's atmosphere interferes with our communications. It is nothing." "With respect, sir, the losses follow a pattern. The units were all isolated when they went silent, and local reports suggest coordinated attacks." "Coordinated?" Hose turned to face his adjutant. "By whom? Their armies are destroyed. Their governments have collapsed. These are just scattered survivors fighting for their lives." "Perhaps," said, "but they are fighting effectively. The attack patterns suggest training and discipline." Hose was about to respond when an alarm screamed through the command center. Red lights flashed. Officers rushed to their stations. "What is happening?" Hose demanded. A communications officer looked up from his screen. His face had gone pale gray, which meant he was terrified. "Sensor alert, Subcommander. Multiple jump signatures detected at the edge of the system." "How many signatures?" The officer's voice shook. "Thousands, sir. At least 12,000 vessels. They are moving toward Earth at high speed." Hose felt his blood turn cold. "That is impossible. Show me." The main display screen lit up with a tactical map of the solar system. A massive cloud of red dots was approaching from beyond the outer planets. So many dots that they blurred together into a solid mass. "This must be an error," Hose said. "Run the scan again." "We have run it 5 times, sir. The readings are accurate. These are real ships." "But where could they come from? The humans have no space fleet. They have nothing beyond this one planet." Before anyone could answer, a new signal cut through all frequencies. The main screen flickered and changed. A human face appeared. It was a woman with short silver hair and cold gray eyes. She wore a military uniform with insignia that no had ever seen. Behind her, visible through a viewport, were rows of warships stretching to the horizon. "Attention Occupation Force," she said. Her voice was calm, almost pleasant. "This is Admiral Shaw of the Human First Fleet. You have attacked you have killed our people. You have made a very serious mistake." Hose stared at the screen in disbelief. "I am transmitting this message on all frequencies so that every one of your ships can hear me clearly," Admiral Shaw continued. "You believed that Earth was defenseless. You believed that humanity was primitive. You believed that we would not fight back." She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You were wrong." The signal ended. The tactical display returned, showing the approaching fleet growing larger every second. Hose found his voice. "Contact Admiral Al immediately. We need orders." The communication went through. Admiral Al's face appeared on the screen. The Supreme Commander of the invasion force looked as shocked as everyone else. "You have seen the sensor data?" Hose asked. "I have seen it," Al replied. "I do not understand it. These humans should not have this capability." "What are your orders, Admiral?" Al was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice had regained its authority. "We have 300 warships in this system, the finest vessels in the Dominion fleet. These humans may have numbers, but they are new to space warfare. They do not have our experience. They do not have our training. They do not have our technology." "You want to fight them?" "I want to destroy them," Al said. "Form a defensive sphere around the planet. When these humans arrive, we will show them why the Dominion has never lost a war." On the surface of Earth, humans looked up at the sky. For days they had seen only the dark shapes of ships. Now they saw something else. Lights in the sky. Thousands of lights growing brighter every minute. In the mountains of Colorado, a group of resistance fighters huddled in a cave. They had been fighting a hopeless battle for 2 weeks. They had lost half their people. They had almost lost hope. Sergeant Tyler Martinez stood at the cave entrance with binoculars pressed to his eyes. He was a young man with a face and tired eyes. He had not slept in 3 days. "What do you see?" asked Private Lisa Grant, a medic who had been treating the wounded with whatever supplies they could scavenge. Tyler lowered the binoculars. His hands were shaking. "Ships," he said. "Human ships, thousands of them." Lisa grabbed the binoculars and looked for herself. Her jaw dropped. "That's not possible," she whispered. "We don't have ships like that. Where did they come from?" "I don't know," Tyler said. "And I don't care. Help is here." The news spread through the resistance groups like fire. Radio signals passed from one hidden camp to another. In bunkers and caves and ruined buildings all over the planet, humans looked up and saw hope for the first time since the invasion began. In Geneva, Secretary General Laura Mitchell stood beside General Cross, watching the tactical display. "Your fleet is really out there," she said. "This is not a dream." "No dream," Cross replied. 12,437 warships, each one more powerful than anything they have. We built them to be better. We had 70 years to study their technology and improve on it. Can they win? Cross looked at her with serious eyes. They have never faced an enemy like us. They have always had superior technology. They have always had superior numbers. Today, they have neither. In orbit around Earth, the fleet formed a perfect sphere. 300 warships, weapons charged and shields at maximum. They had crushed dozens of species. They had conquered 17 star systems. They were the iron fist of the Dominion. They waited for the humans to arrive. They did not wait long. At exactly 14:27 Greenwich Mean Time, the first human fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a hammer falling from heaven. 12,000 warships against 300. The biggest battle in human history was about to begin. And they were about to learn that they had made the worst mistake of their 10,000-year empire. They had given humanity a reason to fight. The first shots were fired at 14:27 and 12 seconds. Lieutenant Commander Cole pushed his destroyer, the Relentless, forward at maximum speed. His crew of 40 men and women had trained for this moment their entire lives. They had run thousands of simulations. They had memorized every weakness of ship designs. Now they would see if that training was enough. "Weapons free," ordered. "Target the cruiser on the left flank. Fire at will." The Relentless opened up with everything it had, sent metal slugs at a fraction of the speed of light. Plasma cannons released blue-white beams of superheated matter. Missiles streaked through space trailing smoke and fire. The cruiser's shields flickered and died. Its hull tore open like paper. In 3 seconds, it was nothing but burning wreckage. Did not celebrate. He was already selecting his next target. All around him, the battle raged. Human ships attacked in coordinated waves. They moved with precision and speed that they had never seen. Each wave hit a different point in the enemy formation, never giving them time to respond. Admiral Al stood on the bridge of the Dominion's Pride, watching his fleet die. "They fight like veterans," he said to no one in particular. "These are not new soldiers. They fight like they have been doing this for centuries." "Admiral, we have lost 47 ships in the first 5 minutes, reported his tactical officer. "Our formation is breaking apart." "Order all ships to regroup around the flagship. We will concentrate our fire and break through their lines." It was a good strategy. It might have worked against most enemies. But these were not most enemies. Captain Brooks commanded the carrier Defiance from the center of the human fleet. Her ship carried 200 fighter craft, each one piloted by humans who had spent their lives training for this day. "All Avenger squadrons, you are clear to launch," she ordered. "Hit their flagship. I want Admiral Al's attention." 200 fighters screamed out of the Defiance's launch bays. They split into 12 squadrons, each one named after a fallen city. The Moscow Squadron, the London Squadron, the Beijing Squadron. Squadron Leader Park led the Tokyo Squadron toward the Dominion's Pride. His fighter was small and fast, designed to slip through gaps in enemy defenses. "Tokyo Squadron, follow my lead," he called out. "We go in low and fast, hit the engine section, make them slow." They had never faced human fighter tactics before. Their ships were designed to fight other capital ships. The small, nimble fighters confused their targeting systems. Dove under a stream of plasma fire and released his missiles at point-blank range. They hit the Dominion's Pride right where the engines met the hull. The massive warship shuddered. One of its 3 main engines went dark. "Direct hit," reported. "Their flagship is wounded." On the bridge of the Dominion's Pride, alarms screamed and lights flickered. "Engine 3 is offline," reported the engineering officer. "Hull breaches on decks 40 through 52. We have lost maneuverability." Admiral Al gripped his command chair with clawed hands. "How is this happening? We have the most advanced ships in the galaxy." "Admiral," said the tactical officer quietly, "their ships are more advanced than ours. Their weapons are more powerful. Their shields are stronger. They have been improving on our technology for decades." "That is impossible. They only had one crashed ship to study." "One ship was enough, Admiral." The battle had been raging for only 15 minutes, but it was already clear who was winning. The sphere formation had collapsed. Their ships were scattered, fighting alone against an enemy that outnumbered them 40-1. On the destroyer Relentless, Cole watched another cruiser explode. "That's our fifth kill," reported his weapons officer, a young woman named Amy Nash. "These things go down easier than the simulation said." "Don't get confident," warned. "We've still got 100 enemy ships out there." 93 now, Amy corrected, watching another explosion on her screen. "Make that 92. On the surface of Earth, people watched the lights in the sky. Every flash was an explosion. Every streak of fire was a ship dying. In Colorado, Sergeant Tyler Martinez stood with his resistance fighters on a mountain ridge. They had built a bonfire to warm themselves. Now they did not need it. The fire in the sky gave them all the warmth they needed. "They're winning," Lisa Grant said, her voice filled with wonder. "Our people are actually winning." Tyler nodded. He had tears in his eyes and he did not care who saw them. "They're doing more than winning. They're destroying them." In New York City, Sub-Commander Hose watched the battle from his command center. Every screen showed disaster, ships exploding, officers screaming for help that would never come. "Should we evacuate?" asked Adjutant, his voice shaking. "Where would we go?" Hose replied. "The fleet was our only way off this planet." A nearby explosion rocked the building. The power flickered. When it came back, half the screens were dead. "They're coming for us," whispered. "They're going to kill us all." Hose said nothing. He was beginning to understand something that his people had never understood before. The Dominion had conquered species that were weaker than them, species that gave up when they saw power, species that accepted defeat. Humans were different. Humans did not accept defeat. They prepared, they planned, they waited, and when the moment came, they struck with everything they had. In orbit, the battle was ending. The Third Fleet, 300 of the most powerful warships in the Dominion, had been reduced to less than 50 ships in under an hour. Admiral Al watched his last cruisers die. His own ship was crippled. Half his crew was dead. The bridge was filled with smoke and the screams of the wounded. A human ship appeared on the main viewer. It was massive, bigger even than the Dominion's Pride. Its hull was black and smooth, covered with weapon ports that glowed with barely contained energy. A communication came through. Admiral Shaw's face filled the screen. "Admiral Al," she said, "this is your one chance to surrender. Order your remaining ships to power down their weapons and lower their shields. Do it now, and some of your people will survive." Al stared at her. In 10,000 years, no commander had ever surrendered to an enemy. But in 10,000 years, no commander had ever faced an enemy like this. "And if I refuse?" he asked. Admiral Shaw's expression did not change. "Then we will destroy every ship in your fleet, and then we will come for you." Al looked around his ruined bridge. His officers were dead or dying. His ship was broken. His fleet was gone. He had come to Earth expecting easy prey. He had found something else entirely. "I surrender," he said. The words tasted like poison in his mouth. Admiral Shaw nodded. "A wise choice. All vessels power down immediately. Any ship that fails to comply will be destroyed without warning." One by one, the surviving ships went dark. Their weapons powered down. Their shields fell. The battle was over. Humanity had won. And the galaxy would never be the same. The Dominion's Pride drifted powerless in Earth's orbit. Its once mighty hull was torn and blackened. Its engines were dead. Its weapons were slag. The greatest warship in the fleet had become a floating coffin. Admiral Al stood in what remained of his command chamber. Most of the ceiling had collapsed. Bodies of his officers lay scattered across the floor. The smell of smoke and death filled the air. He heard them before he saw them. Heavy footsteps in the corridor. The hiss of atmosphere as an airlock opened. Human soldiers entered in powered armor that made them look like metal giants. Their weapons were pointed at him. Their faces were hidden behind black visors. Behind them walked a woman in a naval uniform. She was small compared to the armored soldiers, but she moved like she owned the ship, like she owned the galaxy. Admiral Shaw stopped in front of Al. She looked at him without fear, without hatred, just cold, calculating interest. "So you are Al," she said, "the admiral who came to conquer Earth." Al drew himself up to his full height. Even now, even defeated he would not grovel. "I am," he said, "and you are the leader of these humans." "I am the commander of this fleet," Shaw replied. "The leader of humanity is still down on that planet your people were bombing a few hours ago." Al looked past her through the cracked viewport. Earth hung in the darkness, blue and green and white, beautiful, defenseless looking. How wrong that appearance had been. "How did you do this?" he asked. "Your species has only been in space for a few decades. You should not have this technology. You should not have this fleet." Admiral Shaw smiled slightly. "One of your scout ships crashed on Earth 70 years ago. We found it. We studied it. We learned." "One ship. You built all of this from one ship." "One ship was enough to give us a starting point. We improved on everything we found. Your shields, your weapons, your engines, we made them all better." Al shook his head in disbelief. "The Dominion has spent 10,000 years developing our technology. You matched it in 70 years. "We exceeded it," Shaw corrected. "Humans are fast learners, Admiral, especially when we are scared." She pulled a small device from her pocket and activated a holographic display. A star map appeared in the air between them. Territory glowed purple across a quarter of the galaxy. "I am going to let you live," Admiral Shaw said. "I am going to give you a shuttle, and you are going to fly back to your high command, and you are going to deliver a message." "What message?" Al asked. Shaw pointed at the star map. "Tell them that Earth is off limits. Tell them that if the Dominion ever sends another ship within 10 light years of our system, we will not stop at defending ourselves." She expanded the map, highlighting a dozen worlds marked with red symbols. "We have decoded your communications," she continued. "We know the locations of every species your people have conquered, every slave world, every prison colony, every planet where people are suffering under rule." Al felt a chill run down his spine. "What are you saying?" Admiral Shaw leaned forward, her gray eyes burning with cold fire. "I am saying that we are coming for them. All of them, every species you have enslaved, every world you have conquered, we are going to free them." "You cannot do that," Al said. "The Dominion controls hundreds of worlds. We have thousands of warships. We have trillions of soldiers." "You had 300 warships here," Shaw replied. "Now you have none. How do you think your thousands will fare against our millions?" She straightened up and turned to leave. At the door she paused. "One more thing, Admiral. Those 12,000 ships you saw today, that was what we built in secret, in fear, hiding in the shadows. Imagine what we will build now that we are not hiding anymore." 24 hours later, a single shuttle departed Earth orbit. Admiral Al sat alone in the small craft, flying toward the nearest Dominion outpost. He thought about what he had seen: 12,000 human warships, advanced technology that his own engineers did not understand, soldiers who fought with a fury he had never witnessed. And he thought about Admiral Shaw's words: "Imagine what we will build now." The Dominion had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had never faced a real challenge. They had grown comfortable, confident, certain of their superiority. That certainty was gone now. On Earth, humanity celebrated. In cities that had survived the bombardment, people filled the streets. They wept with joy. They embraced strangers. They looked up at the sky and saw not fear but hope. In the ruins of New York, survivors began to dig through the rubble. They found bodies. They found destruction. But they also found each other. Subcommander Hose and the surviving ground forces were taken prisoner. They expected to be tortured. They expected to be killed. Instead, they were given medical treatment. They were given food and water. They were treated with something they did not understand: mercy. General Cross stood beside Secretary General Laura Mitchell on the steps of the United Nations headquarters in Geneva. The building had survived the bombardment. It would serve as the center of a new era. "What happens now?" Laura asked. Cross looked up at the sky, where human warships still patrolled in formation. "Now we rebuild," he said. "We bury our dead, we heal our wounded, we repair our cities. And then we do what Admiral Shaw promised. We go out there and we free every species that have enslaved. We show the galaxy that they are not alone anymore." Laura nodded slowly. "We spent 70 years preparing to defend ourselves. How long will it take to free the galaxy?" Cross smiled. It was the first real smile he had shown in weeks. "I don't know," he said, "but I know that we will not stop until it is done." 6 months later, the first human liberation fleet jumped into the home system. They expected fierce resistance. They expected a battle that would shake the stars. What they found was something different. The home fleet was in chaos. News of the defeat at Earth had spread through the Dominion like poison. Slave species were rising up. Conquered worlds were rebelling. The empire that had stood for 10,000 years was cracking from within. Admiral Shaw stood on the bridge of her new flagship, the dreadnought called Humanity's Resolve. Around her, 200,000 human warships spread across the system. "Admiral," said her communications officer, "we are receiving surrender signals from multiple vessels. They are asking for terms." Shaw nodded. "Accept their surrender. Any ship that resists will be destroyed. Any ship that surrenders will be treated with respect." She walked to the main viewport and looked out at a planet of warriors who had never known defeat. "Send a message to their government," she ordered. "Tell them that the age of the Dominion is over. Tell them that humanity offers 2 choices, peace or annihilation. They have 1 hour to decide." They chose peace. The Dominion, an empire that had ruled for 10,000 years, fell in 18 months. Not because humanity destroyed them, but because humanity showed the galaxy that they could be defeated. Slave species across 100 worlds threw off their chains. Conquered peoples rose against their occupiers. The Dominion collapsed from the inside, its subjects no longer afraid of masters who had been proven mortal. And through it all, humanity was there, offering aid, offering protection, offering something the galaxy had never known: hope. In the end, they had been right about one thing. Humanity was new to the stars. They were young. They were inexperienced. But they had made one fatal error. They had assumed that young meant weak. They had assumed that inexperienced meant helpless. They had assumed that Earth would not fight back. They were wrong. Humanity was never prey. They were the predator the universe forgot to fear. And now the galaxy knew it. The end.